Hi guys, Aaron Dorr here with the Missouri Firearms Coalition with an update for gun owners in northwestern, north central Missouri, House District number 2. It's this area up here up against the Iowa border, Worth and Harrison counties, and then going south, Grundy County, Davies County, and Caldwell County. Again, that north central, northwestern corner here in Missouri. A lot of questions about this race from our members. Now, first, just kind of a recap as to what we do and how we do it. As a non-for-profit organization, we're never going to tell you who to vote for. We can't do that. But instead, our job is to give you guys the information you're looking for to make an informed decision on who is going to fight for our gun rights in Jefferson City. We do it through a variety of ways. We combine all of our working knowledge about the candidates, especially if they're an incumbent, and we also use a very detailed candidate survey program. We ask the candidates the same questions. It's 10 questions. It's not very complicated. No double negatives, because the issue here is not complicated. Either you support freedom or you oppose it. Either you've got courage or you're a chicken. Either you're going to fight to pass freedom or you're going to bow to Rhino Party leaders once you're safely elected into office. And so we put a lot of effort into this program, and our report for you guys is going to draw a contrast that is worthy of mentioning to our members. That's why we're engaging in this race with this informative video. So we're going to begin with Randy Railsback. I got to be honest, before I even break this down, I got to be honest, when I first heard about this race, I asked my support staff, I said, are you sure there's an incumbent here? Because I'd never heard the name Randy Railsback in my life. In my entire working time in Jeff City, I've never seen Randy Railsback. I've never bumped into Randy Railsback. Didn't even know he was in the building, but he has been for 2 years. And that's a concern. I'll just say that. When Republican candidates are in office, they're elected into office, and they never step up to the plate, they never rise to the occasion and fight for freedom, that's a concern. That's a concern to MOFC members in these districts. But in this case, Randy Railsback is refusing to fill out his candidate survey. Now, a candidate survey does not give you the complete and final picture on a candidate every time, and sometimes candidates whose survey will go on to break that promise down the road. Rare, but it happens. But in our experience, when a candidate refuses to fill out their candidate survey, that almost always tells us that that's part of that Rhino moderate class who is preparing to stab us in the back if elected, and the last thing they want to do is to be caught in a written lie. And so instead, they refuse to do candidate surveys, and they just keep saying, I'm pro-gun, I'm pro-gun, I'm pro-gun at every candidate forum. So again, it's a very big concern to us that Randy Railsback has refused to fill out his candidate survey. And it's interesting to us in particular that we found out that Randy Railsback is going around the district telling everybody that he was one of the leading drivers, one of the leading authors, one of the leading guys who passed the Second Amendment Preservation Act in Jefferson City last year. And I mean, it's hilarious to me, because our organization did help write the bill. We've been involved in that fight for multiple years. We were there in committee testifying on behalf of the bill. We've been there in court ever since the governor signed it. We were there when the governor signed it, been in court to defend it ever since that time. At no point before or during that fight for SEPA, and dang sure not afterwards, at no point have we seen or heard from Randy Railsback. But apparently, if you ask him, he's one of the leading guys who delivered SEPA here in Missouri. Now, they say imitation is the highest form of flattery, but when it comes to our freedom, when it comes to our absolute right to defend ourselves, for a legislator who has done nothing to advance the bill, to claim that he authored the bill, that is the kind of hypocrisy that we have to call out, and we're going to do that in this video here today. And finally, Randy Railsback, besides not surveying and doing nothing to help pass SEPA, the guy has never sponsored a gun bill in his entire time, 2 years in Jefferson City. You know, normally, when a candidate tells you how pro-gun they are, which he's doing right now, normally those candidates will have sponsored a variety of gun bills. They will have led in the fight for freedom. They'll have done things that are tangible, right? And they can point to that record and say, here's where I fought for you. You can go online and look at it for yourself. Randy has never sponsored a gun bill. In fact, he's sponsored about 6 bills total that we can see in Jefferson City so far. So a lot of claims, a lot of false claims, but never been involved in the fight for the Second Amendment, and Randy Railsback is refusing his candidate survey. So what that means is that we don't know how he would vote on a future Republican-backed red flag gun seizure bill. We don't know how he would back on a future Republican-led effort to repeal portions of SEPA. It's always being talked about here in Missouri. We have no idea how he would vote on other issues like universal background checks or magazine limits. We don't know because Randy won't answer his survey. The question you have to ask as a gun owner in HD2 is why? Why would he hide it? That's a good question. You should ask him that. Moving on to Maisie Boyd. Now, Maisie Boyd worked in the Trump White House for a number of years. She then worked for Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene out of Georgia, and she came back to Missouri to run in this seat. Now, Mazzie was one of the first candidates, if not the first candidate here in Missouri, to complete her MOFC candidate survey, and it was a 100% pro-gun survey. Every question up and down the line, 100% pro-gun. Mazzie has promised in writing to oppose any attempt to ban AR-15s or 30-round magazines. She will oppose any attempt to pass red flag gun seizures. Now, after the federal gun control bill Biden passed just last month, this is a real threat. Because again, the feds are now going to bribe red states with $750 million in federal money, and they're going to give them some of that money as a bribe if they pass red flag laws. Make no mistake, there are rhinos in Jeff City right now who would love to pass red flags and get their hands on that free government money. Maisie will be opposed to that in any context in which red flags comes up. 100% opposed to universal background checks. Not a question for her. It was an immediate answer. She'll always vote no. Maisie supports SEPA legislation. We are going to continue to see efforts in Jeff City to repeal portions of SEPA law. We saw it this year. It's going to keep happening. Maisie's 100% opposed to any attempt to weaken SEPA. And I will say that Maisie came down to Kansas City to the federal courthouse recently to show support for SEPA when the DOJ came into town with their 10-person team trying to roll back SEPA law in federal court. When you add this up, the survey, her work in the Trump White House, her work for Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, Maisie Boyd is a fighter who is going to actually fight and lead the fight for the Second Amendment here in Missouri. That is what this story adds up to. The survey, the history, the passion, her showing up at the courthouse. These are the things that we want to see from candidates who profess to be pro-gun. So Maisie Boyd, 100% pro-gun on her survey. Every issue we asked her up and down the line, she was rock solid. We're happy to acknowledge that. If you see Maisie on the campaign trail, thank her for her strong pro-gun position. If you see Randy, you need to ask Randy Railsback, why'd you never sponsor a gun bill when you were elected? Why are you claiming fake credit for SEPA when the guys who got it done said they'd never even heard your name, never saw you in committee, never saw you fight on the floor, never saw you in the courthouse to defend it? Why do you claim all this fake credit when you didn't lead that fight? And why won't you survey? Why won't you survey? Folks, if you see Randy Railsback, ask him those questions. And remember, everyone says they're pro-gun. It's Missouri in a Republican Party primary. If he says, don't worry, I'm pro-gun, then just say, prove it. Answer the Missouri Firearms Coalition survey. Guys, that's what we have for you in this race. Thank you for your attention. Share the heck out of this video. Make sure it's seen far and wide. Get the word out there. And guys, join our fight for freedom here in Missouri today at www.joinmofc.com.